A lot of times, product analytics can be ad hoc and reactive. There might be a churn problem, there might be an NPS problem, and people at that point make the decision, we need to go and look at this. So you don't want to be at that point where you're caught by surprise. You want to be proactive. You want to have you want to know your metrics ahead of time so that doesn't surprise you if it's coming.
So hi everyone, and welcome to our next episode of Product Therapy. So with me today is Tugce Erten, and Tugce and I work together at PagerDuty. So we know each other a little bit. And I wanted to start by asking you, Tugce, to tell us a bit about Freshworks, where you are now, and your role.
Awesome. So Freshworks is we have a conglomerate of products. I would say we do ITSM, we do ITOM, we do CRM. Our main flagship product that you might know us by is Freshdesk. So we started out with Freshdesk, and then we just grew into all these other markets. And with that, each of the BU, we're now in like these BUs, and each of these BUs have, how would you say, like they're all like, almost each of them are a company on their own. We gave them all the autonomy, and now we are a large company with many companies underneath it.
Awesome. And so tell us about your role and why it was created.
Yeah. So I'm the first person to be in this role. It's called Product Operations and Strategy. So it's a very cool name. But
did you come up with the name, or did someone else?
I think it was a collaboration between me and my boss, because he was looking for chief of staff that was going to do all of this. And I was like, this is a much broader role than chief of staff. So we landed on product operations and strategy, which I thought I was doing at PagerDuty a lot of times anyway. So I like the name, but what it really entails is there's product operations, which is, very different from company to company. And then there's product analytics, which we're going to focus on today. And then there's pricing. And then there's like some strategy work that I do one-off for the CPO, who is my boss. And but generally speaking, it's a pretty broad scope and kind of like catch everything kind of function with related to anything related to strategy and operations. And the reason why we came up with this function is that, as I mentioned, Freshworks started out as like many small companies that were very successful at growing on their own. And now we want to make sure that we're standardized. We have a good cross-sell engine. We're a very large company now. So we want to make sure that, we're standardized in the best practices possible.
Nice. Well, then, so given that, what are some of the key initiatives or business goals?
There are a few key initiatives that are going on. There is the first one is product adoption. So we want to make sure that across our BUs, we measure adoption in the same way. So what does that mean? We want to make sure that when we are sitting down with our management team and they say, how is the customer adoption? We want to be able to tell them, okay, we have the standard definition of customers that are in essential adoption, that are in advanced assumption and adoption, and then there are companies that are going to be in the ultimate adoption. So we want to standardize that across our BU, so we speak one language when we're talking to management team or across the company when your CSMs are talking about it versus the product team is talking about it. With that, like the main goal is to identify areas where we can like get people to engage with our products better and adopt us more quickly, and make use of our products in the best way. So that's one of the initiatives. We want to be able to talk intelligently and in a standardized fashion across our BUs. The other thing that we're working on is like looking at product usage. And I'm giving all of these product analytics related examples, because I feel like you guys might care about those because we use Heap for those. So with the product usage, this is mainly around like how many tickets are customers creating. We want to make sure that if one BU is measuring in a certain way, the other business unit is also measuring it in the same way. Another thing is operations. So making sure that, when we're creating strategy decks, there is a framework that our business units, product teams are using the same framework. So we talk about it in the same, we can create a muscle in which the management team can think in one way or like in a standardized way to evaluate opportunities or evaluate the risk, etc., across the BUs. So that's another key initiative that we have. There's like many initiatives that are going on, but we're drinking from the fire hose now as like a new company, a new division within a product org. We want to first understand the landscape and then tackle all of the areas that needs these standardizations.
So I know that you joined Freshworks recently. And so when you got there, like what was the state of product analytics?
So they had already made the decision to start the product analytics team. So we were able to get one of the team members from data analytics team to come and join the product analytics and lead the team. So what we're doing there is we have, as I said, we have somewhat independent BUs, and they were doing different things, different metrics, not standardized way of reporting. And what this team is going to be doing is like bringing that standardization across the product team with relationship to analytics and with relationship to pricing, operations. So we want to make sure that all of the BUs are aligned and act like they're part of one company that is that provides one standard unique experience. We're going towards this like better world where there's less chaos and the standardized metrics, and it's not reactive, it's proactive.
Oh, I like that word. So tell me about the proactive.
So if you think about it, a lot of times product analytics can be ad hoc and reactive. There might be a churn problem. There might be an NPS problem, and people at that point make the decision, we need to go and look at this. So you don't want to be at that point where you're caught by surprise. You want to be, proactive. You want to have, you want to know your metrics ahead of time so that doesn't surprise you if it's coming. So what we are trying, the state that we want to get to is like we have a standardized set of metrics, dashboards, like financial, product related, across BUs, like anything that we deem important to the business units. We're creating dashboards for those. And eventually what we would like to do is like every month or every 2 weeks, we would like to sit down and review those so that nothing pops up as like surprise. If there's like a leading indicator, you catch that, you fix it, or you kind of take like precautions. Let's say that your churn is going up. you want to dig into that. Why are people leaving? Oh, there's a glitch here, so people are unhappy about that, so they're like leaving for the competitor, etc. So you want to be in that point where you don't have to see a 10% churn to catch the one glitch that is making everyone unhappy.
Gotcha.
So that's what we're trying to get to, in the sense that like we're trying to get to a place where we have a standardized metrics. We review them periodically with the management team, with the related product and like across the company teams.
You mentioned that you're hiring and building a whole team of product analytics folks.
Yeah.
And so how are you building that out? Like what sort of skills are important for that function?
Yeah, Sarah, I think the most important skill is being analytical, not to be so obvious.
It's crazy.
It's crazy. Like you need to be able to speak some algorithms to folks. But I think beyond that, like, so you need to be able to take a vague question, and then you have to be able to dissect that, and then actually maybe change the question and say, that's not a good question. You have to ask this other question so you can get the answer that you actually want. So a really good data analyst or a product analyst should be able to do that. What we are looking for has been like, can they code and like get the data and like analyze the data? B, which is I think a lot of times kind of like underestimated, but the power of articulating the story. So I do think that a lot of times analytical people do not want to emphasize that, but that is where analytics shines, because if you can explain it to people who haven't stared at the data, you're not going to be successful with your insights, because no one will understand what you have done. So I think that's just like my two folds. Obviously, like we give them like different tests, and then we try to see how people can talk to their work in interviews. But interviews are hard.
Yeah, that's a great insight about just making sure that the person is a good communicator and how important that is. I also liked your insight at the beginning around, sometimes you have to change the question. Sounds a lot like product management, where a customer asks for something, and that's great, but what you actually want to ask is, well, what are you trying to accomplish?
Yes, absolutely. And I think it does take some time for people to really be able to do that, not just, be seasoned analysts, but they need to know the product and they need to know the data to be able to guide the PMs or the management team to ask the better question.
Yeah, that makes sense. So when you think about maybe it's a new person in product analytics team that is working with a BU and they're trying to put together their metrics or start somewhere, like where do you start with this?
So they're trying to put together a set of metrics and they're a newbie.
Yeah. Or maybe it's like, where do you start in general? Like where, you have a whole effort around adoption, say, like how do you get this going across the organization?
Oh, I mean, I think that's a pretty good question. I think you start with defining it. You work with the PM, like for example, with product adoption, you work with the PM and you say, how can we categorize these customers? You start at the very beginning and very basics of it. So then you identify the group, the features, and then you answer the highest, like the most burning question, which is like the question that people generally have, which is like, what's our adoption level? So then once you have that definition, you can go into that like big question. And then there's like, the thing is, nobody really just cares about the adoption. Like, 80% of our customers adopted. That doesn't really mean much, to people. You want to get into the details where you can actually influence the product or the product roadmap so they can actually make changes, because nobody wants to know a metric just for the sake of it. We're all here to make impact and like contribute to the business, and you can't really contribute to business with like a very flat high level number. So you have to say, actually, let's look at the cheapest plan. Out of those folks, like 80% of them have adopted. I'm making up numbers. And then out of the next ones, you have like 70%. And the last one is like 50%, which then indicates a different problem there. You're like, oh, like we're providing all these features. What can we do here? That means that a lot of people are not aware of the features that they have access to. So then you go into like discovery mode with the PM, and then, they could say, oh, which features are like the ones that are likely to miss. So then you're like, it's basically almost like progressive, what do you call it? The progressive disclosure.
Mhm.
The problem kind of does that to like by its nature to you.
So it sounds like you're building a team by its nature that is not just like getting the analytics done, but they're advisors
Yeah.
to the product team and to the roadmap.
Yeah.
Very
I mean,
cool.
that's the ideal, that's the end goal. Currently, we are just kind of maybe like putting out fires. We are getting to this state where our team has been very good about working with the PMs to make those changes. And we have seen like significant improvements. Like there's so many quick wins that you can get when you're asking the questions in a way that that is helpful.
That's awesome. So you mentioned you use Heap, as of course I know you're a customer. And why are you using it, and how has it been helping you?
Yeah, great question. So Heap was here when I got here 3 months ago, but since then I've been a fan, not because you work there, but
which is a benefit though.
The benefit, obviously, and Chandler. So the thing that I really keep on coming across that I really like about Heap is that it gives me things that I don't know that I don't know. Like there's a lot of things that I don't know, and I know that I don't know, so I can go and find out. But if I don't know something that I don't know, then it's not going to be found. What I mean by that is that Heap has this feature where it captures data automatically. So you don't have to go ahead and build tracks, etc. So by doing that, I don't need to go and talk to engineers to implement tracks, which means that there's one step of miscommunication that is avoided. And then the other thing is that it has all these automated metrics built in that maybe I wouldn't have thought through and seen or come up with the metrics, but it has ability to surface that for me. It does that automatically, which is very helpful when we're currently a small team. So the more that we can leverage, the product, the better it is.
How do you think about the breakdown between what the product analytics team does and the product managers? Like, do you expect the product managers to be doing some of their own analysis? And how do you see that working?
Yeah, absolutely. So the thing is, I think 80%, I'm going to use a 80-20, 80% of the questions that PMs ask could be self-serve. And if they know how to use Heap, they will have that answer very quickly, because a lot of the questions are very simple, you don't really need all the details, or it's not a complicated analysis. And then 20% of the questions are going to be difficult questions, like how are we going to define adoption? That's a difficult question. That's when you need human thinking, kind of like understanding human psychology, and like kind of building those kind of qualitative, like where qualitative and quantitative might meet, so you can, leverage the human power. So I say that, like, if it's a complicated thing, you want the analyst to do it. If it's self-serve, straightforward number, I would think that the PMs wouldn't want to go through our long queue and would want to just log into Heap and find the answer themselves.
So Tugce, since you manage a team of product analysts, even though this podcast is titled Product Therapy, tell me a bit about product analyst therapy. Like, what are the big pain points for product analysts?
Great question. So I would say, I think the biggest pain point is that everyone has a lot of questions, and there's only so many resources, or so much time that you have. So a lot of times there's a lot of questions that people want answered, and they're like, oh, I asked this last year, and we're like, well, it was low priority. We were working on churn, or we were working on expansion, etc. And then the other pain point I would say is, a lot of times PMs are extremely analytical people, and they can pick up like programming language easily. They're technical, so they can do their own analysis. However, data systems are not always perfect. So data analysts are product analysts are very good at like cleaning, making sure that the numbers match. They've seen the numbers several times. So when a PM goes and does an analysis on their own, a lot of times it could be based on not the most accurate data, which then yields different results, and then they put it in front of someone, and that someone has probably been seeing all the numbers that the product analyst has been providing. So and when they see that number, they freak out. So then the analyst has to like reconcile the numbers and figure out. So there's a lot of like burden on the analyst part to like point out why an analysis was like different than the other analysis that has been presented by a PM.
So it sounds like the biggest pain point for product analysts is product managers.
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah. So then I guess the next question is, what do you recommend to ensure that product analysts and product managers work together better?
I think there should be a clear division of labor, meaning there should be, a set of questions. Both sides should know what question belongs to self-serve and what question belongs to someone who's looking at the data all the time, a product analyst, and who can actually create sophisticated algorithms to tackle the problem and actually maybe make the question even better. So they should have an understanding of that. And then that would help if you have like a clear guidance on that. The other thing is some training, you giving PMs some training on the intricacies of data, and better use of self-serve, that also helps. And then, just making sure like running the numbers by an analyst beforehand might also help. If you're presenting I'm assuming a lot of times that the numbers that people are presenting are not like extremely complicated, but if they're presenting it, it's good to check because what is your thought on this? Does this pass your gut check? That's a valid way of like going about making sure that people are not seeing two different numbers from two.
So just staying closely aligned and communicating also.
Yeah.
Awesome. So Tugce, thank you so much for your time. It was awesome to spend this half hour with you. I miss you.
I miss you too. This was great. We need to do this more often.
Exactly.